What's up, guys? It's me again. I'm back with another video. What if Belle had a unique symbiote part 6? Yes, the last episode I left you off on cliffhanger. Oh, and first off, I'm gonna answer a few questions some people had. Well, not questions, more like statements. This series will end in part 8 or 9. If you want me to continue the series past then, I will start putting like goals. I know, like goals, what's wrong with you? Yada yada yada. But yeah. And what if King? I am not starting any new what ifs till I finish the what ifs I'm currently doing. The man who requested Hellboy Bell. That is the next what if I'm doing. It's most likely it's gonna be a 1 to 3 parter. Because I'm not very versed on Hellboy. Just saying. Yes. Yeah. And I have been trying to find like plot to get you guys to get like events to build up to. I've been writing them down. I have about 20 to 23 done. And I think I know what I'm going to do with this. So as Bell looks into the gate, he's astonished by what he sees. It's mountains of treasure. He thinks to himself, with this much we could buy the entire city. As he uses he thinks to himself, I should probably investigate this further when I leave. So he shuts the gate, takes the orb, and escorts the Loki family up. After escorting the Loki familia to the top of the dungeon, he greets Wealth and Lily, and they head down to the 100th floor. They go into the gate, and let's say that the mage that was in, like, I think 2 parts ago, is in their party at this point, because they didn't have a healer. They take the mage. As Belle opens the gate, the mage runs in thinking, this is amazing, and she's thinking, I want to investigate this. When she runs in, her bones and her skin starts to age rapidly. Belle notices before anybody else and runs in to save her. As Belle runs in, the door shuts behind him. Let's say he dropped the orb before he went in the door. The door shut behind him, and Lily and Wealth tried to open the door. They kept putting the orb in, but it kept blinking red. And then an hour later, it glowed blue, and the door began to open. When the door opened, they looked around for Belle. I want to say that since he was on floor 100, Belle was in his samurai armor on screen. So yeah. When the door opened, what they saw was the mage. Her clothes were there, and there was nothing but a skeleton. No skin. The bones were barely holding up. They were about to crumble to dust. Wealth says, time magic. As they look for Belle, all they see is a samurai suit on his knees. Lily starts to cry as Wealth hides her eyes. The samurai suit starts to move. It's creaking and creaking. What Great Sage did is he preserved Belle's life by freezing him in time, using chronokinesis magic and ice magic. But he could see and hear and feel everything. There's no life in there. Nothing exists. It's just objects that are not affected by time. So, while he was in there, Great Sage was moving around. let's say in there, for a great sage in Bell and Rimuru, it had been 1,000 years. When Bell was walking around inside the weird room, he came across the Fountain of Youth. When he drank from the cup, he gained immortality. As he returned to the gate to wait out his time. And now we go back to Lily and them seeing. Bell stands up as he removes the helmet. Bell's eyes are now blue. And his hair is grown out. They're shocked by this and they ask, well, how he's alive. I stumbled upon something rare inside of this dungeon. So they then go up to the surface. Bell is looking around in astonishment and is confused on what he's seeing. It's been 1,000 years, yet nothing's changed. They say, for us, it's only been an hour. That dungeon must use time magic to age its victims till death. But since you somehow beat time, it ran out of magic and no longer could hold you. The Bell says that makes sense. Magic usually worked, considering there was no living being constantly supplying mana. There's no way that spell could have lasted long on the outside. Bell accepts this answer and begins feeling nostalgic. Bell no longer feels sad, pain. Bell no longer feels much for this world. But he carries on for the people he cares about, and the people that depend on him. And so. Yes, that's what I'll do. It's getting harder and harder to record these videos because it's really hard to continue the story when you know what's going to happen. You've altered it so much, you're making up your own anime at this point. Bell draws his sword, and Walt sees that it's completely rusted. As Bell flicks the blade, it returns to a silverish color. Bell's impressed and says, "How'd you keep that blade in such good condition?" He says, "I used my monitor to reinforce it, and I kept it sheathed for about those 1,000 years." Walt applauds Deku's will. Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's the right word forward for it, will. As they're walking around. Let's say all the gold vanished. Let's say all the gold that was in the door was an illusion, and the real treasure was the Fountain of Youth. Bell hasn't told them about that either. So Bell absorbs his armor because the armor is made of symbiot. Bell absorbs his armor as he puts his sword on his hip. Where to go from here? Yeah, we're gonna do that. Okay. You guys might not like me very much for doing this, but I'm gonna say that the Fountain of Youth gave one more ability. He can randomly teleport between worlds. So, He can randomly teleport between worlds. I'm not gonna make him teleport in this episode, but if you want me to give him that ability, I can extend the series farther on, because I can teleport him to different anime in place of different characters. So yes, either I'm ending the series in 2 more parts, or I can do that and give you guys 4 more parts. So it's either gonna be a 12 or 8-part series. Yeah. Okay. So Poseidon, when Poseidon sees Belle, she asks how does hair grow out so much, and why is his eye color different? Belle starts to cry as he hugs Poseidon and says, I missed you. Poseidon hugs him back and says, it's only been an hour. You haven't been in the dungeon for as long as you usually would. Lily explains, and Poseidon starts to cry and says, you had a deal. You had to live 1,000 years in solitude. She hugs him and kisses him on the forehead and says, I'm sorry for that. As she says, you should go see eyes. Belle's eyes widen and says, eyes. He stands up and starts to run. As he knocks on the low familiar door, Finn opens it. Finn asks about how the treasure went. He said the treasure was an illusion, the door was a trap. Finn says, what? It was time magic. And then Belle runs off, storms the eyes room. He opens it. Eyes is on her bed reading. He closes the door behind him, and how do I explain? I guess you could say dive towards her, like kissed her. Yeah. And then for about an hour they just made out. And then I start to say, so what was all that all about? He says, I was caught in a time magic trap. I was stuck for 1,000 years and behind an unbreakable gate. She says, her eyes wide and say, so you lived 1,000 years without me? Yes and no. I felt everything, I heard everything, I saw everything, but I was unable to move. For around 999 years at least. She kisses him again and says, well, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Belle is unfazed as he kisses her back. Says, as long as you're here with me, I can make it. You know what? I'm about to be a dick. I'm about to be a dick to whoever likes ice ships in here. I'm about to be a real bastard. You already probably know where I'm going because of that big spoiler alert. Yeah. For the next 4 months, Eyes and Belle are really close, and now they're going on a dungeon raid. Their goal is to get to floor 101. Yes, floor 101. They get all the way down to floor 100, as Belle says, the trap's run out of mana. It can no longer seal someone for that period of time. It's safe. As they walk through the realm, they find the staircase. It leads down to a room. But let's say that it was just a Loki Familia run and Belle. So, yes, they get down to a singular boss room as they see. Actually, I'm gonna go find a picture for the boss. This is the boss. They walk into the boss room and they see this man sitting on a throne with a sword in hand. Bell steps forth as the rest of the community cast a barrier. As the rest of the community casts a barrier, Bell draws his sword as the monster stands up. He says, "So you think you can complete the dungeon by slaying me?" Bell's shocked now that he's seen his second talking monster, because he knows that Rimuru was the first talking monster. Once Bell's sword is unsheathed, the boss grabs his great sword as he says, "So you are the challenger. Fine. But no, I will not lose to a mere boy." Bell smirks as his eyes go red as his blue eyes go red. He says, "I am no boy." Well, the great sage says, "I am no boy. We are Tempest." As Bell then uses 100% Black Lightning and a new move he made called Flare Step. It increases his speed about 25%. If at 100%, it can do about 25% of what Black Lightning can. So it's 125% Black Lightning, pretty much. He's moving faster than he ever has. As he uses Sub-Zero Blade, trying to end it with one strike. He also adds a bit of paralyzation magic to it. All the Loki Familia sees is a bolt of lightning. He is pure plasma in their eyes. And that's just his back trail. But to the boss, he's just moving really fast. He can track his movements fairly clearly, which means the boss's reaction time is phenomenal. As Bell goes in for a Sub-Zero strike, he aims for the wrist, trying to inflict a small wound, but maximum blood flow. He's trying to pierce the vein. If he can get the Sub-Zero blade into his blood flow, he can freeze his blood and stop his heart. As he cuts his wrist, the demon's arm begins to freeze, but he cuts it off. The demon cut off his own arm to survive. But moments later, it grows back. Bell knows this isn't a healing factor, this is his regeneration ability. The demon smiles and says, "Maybe it will be a challenge." As Bell tells Great Sage to threaten his life, he does. Great Sage does, and Bell becomes faster, Black Lightning being boosted and boosted and boosted. He is at Black Lightning 1,200%. At this point, the demon can barely see him. And to the Loki Familia, he is invisible. He's breaking the sound barrier right now. The speed of light is slower than him. As Great Sage says, "New skill, unlock, Mach 20 speed boost." He says, "Mach 20? Let's go." As he activates Mach 20 speed boost on top of that, and he hits Mach 50. At this point, the demon can't see him. As Bell is cutting. He pierces his chest, but the demon just rips that piece of flesh out. Bell begins to get tired of this as he switches to heat. He cuts the demon, but the black flames do less damage than the ice did. He says, I'm going to need to do something I haven't done before. As he says, Thunderbolt. Deathstorm. As he starts running in a circle, a typhoon of electricity and fire start to envelop the demon. The demon starts to panic as it begins to shoot black arrows randomly out of the fire, and a lot of them hit the Loki Familia's barrier. But due to their overwhelming amount of mages, none of them pierce. Bell gets hit by one of the black arrows, and Great Sage analyzes the skill, Arrow of Darkness. Bell quickly realizes that this demon feeds on darkness, as he points his blade straight up and says, Thunderstorm, heaven strike. As a blue bolt of lightning strikes Bell's sword from the heavens, through the dungeon ground. The dungeon quickly repairs itself, and no floor guardian is summoned. As Bell's blade glows blue, a color so bright that it's illuminating the dungeon, Bell's sword has just become a holy blade. As Bell then pierces the demon's heart, the demon smiles and says, Finally. As the demon dies, the dungeon starts to collapse. And as the dungeon collapses, Bell looks at Eyes in the look of Mila and he says, Goodbye. As he uses the last of his magic power to use chronokinesis and rewind them 8 hours. He only uses his powers to rewind or stop time for around 40 to a minute. 40 seconds to a minute. He just rewinded it 8 hours. This took up all of his mana. He no longer has enough mana to run Black Light. As Eyes realizes she's asleep in her bed, she stands up and starts to run to the dungeon. As the dungeon falls, leaving nothing but Babel where it stood. Well, if you want to figure out what happens to Bell next episode, like, subscribe, comment, and if you want Bell to have the ability to change worlds randomly, I'll give him it. If not, you guys are going to be seeing a lot, and I mean a lot, of Adventurers versus Bell. Because Bell just became Dungeon Keeper. Yes, I'm adding a new thing. Like, subscribe, comment, and if you did like the video, comment suggestions on what you want me to do after I finish the next Hellboy What If, after this. Oh, and if you're fans of Requip Bell, comment if you want a part 2. Like, subscribe, goodbye, and What If King, shout out to you, most dedicated fan. Bye. Duel out.